Everyone, I'll keep this hopefully within 5 minutes. So, just to quickly introduce myself, even though it's obvious because I've been around here for years, I'm George Holmes and I'm LSU's first full-time sabbatical paid position for postgrads, because everyone here is a first-time executive officer. Except for me. Except for John. Anyway, before we begin and I talk about kind of my plans for the year, I want to quickly talk about what's happening at the start of the year. I started the post on September 12th, a lot later than everyone else. And actually I started a lot later for me to actually make a tangible difference to the experience within anyone's first few weeks of coming here, because I didn't have the time to prepare a kind of series of events or anything like that, but that will of course be happening next year. But I want to quickly talk about some feedback that I was getting from my initial emails that I was sending out to people. And it was actually quite bad and quite alarming. And one of the things I noted, that there was a real sense of loneliness and a real sense of dissatisfaction with the initial experience that the union was providing for postgraduates here. I've highlighted the words that actually really stood out to me, but isolated was a really important one. The university wasn't inclusive, and that people felt lonely, because coming from somewhere else, coming to a new institution, you might feel lonely, you might not know anyone. If you're on a course with 4 people and you're driving half an hour to get here, you're not going to know anyone. And that's something that's really struck with me, and something that I'm really wanting to eliminate, because as I've said to a lot of people in exec, actually in my first term here at uni, and Henry will know this because I lived with him in first year, I didn't engage with any of the stuff that the union was doing, and I felt quite isolated. I was missing home, and I actually nearly dropped out of uni before Christmas in my first year because I just wasn't enjoying it. But I got involved with the union, and look at me now, 25 years later. But is that a problem with Loughborough, or is it more general? No, it's not a problem that's just Loughborough, it's everywhere. Everywhere, people are only really now starting to talk about, especially in students' unions, how lonely and how isolating postgraduate experiences can be, especially for researchers who, a lot of the work they do by themselves in a lab, they might be exploring a field that nobody's explored before. That is a really scary thing to be doing. And the pressure is compounded when we talk about stuff like people self-funding or people being funded by sort of foreign governments or companies. There is a lot of pressure on their heads to make something really tangible and really good. And just a few quotes there as well. Doing a PhD has always been seen as a long and lonely business. And I do not think that the PhD caused my depression, but it did trigger it in some way. That's someone that dropped out of their PhD experience, not here, but at Warwick, that felt like they just weren't feeling looked after, and I think that's a real problem. And I'm actually attending a conference at Nottingham in a few weeks' time called Postgraduates, We're People Too, that's talking about the mental health and the well-being of postgraduates, and how students' unions really, are they doing enough? Because I don't think they are. And I'm very critical of how LSU has been in the past towards postgraduates. I think as a postgraduate last year, if I hadn't been involved already, there'd be nothing for me. I didn't even get emails till like November. So it's quite, it was quite bad, and I'm working really hard. Not to say that the union's not amazing, because it is, but there are certain things it could be doing a lot better. And I'm working my butt off to make that happen. So what is my goal for the year? What am I trying to accomplish? Well, my first thing is I want the postgraduate community to know that I care. Now have your minds blown, because this is one hell of an acronym. Care. What and how am I going to accomplish that? So C, community. A, accessibility. R, relationships. And E, engagement. And I'm going to talk about each one now. So community is about fostering a strong sense of community within the postgraduate population here, to make them feel like that they are part of a community. That can really help with the problems with isolation, the problems of feeling lonely. If they know that there are people that are going through the same thing, if they engage with them at kind of more casual events, that's really what I'm trying to push this year, then that sense of community is going to be strong, that people are going to feel like they're a part of something, and I really want LSU to facilitate that. And one success we've had so far is literally the welcome social I did that had over 150 people come. I don't think anyone was expecting that many people to come. I didn't, but it was the biggest night, one of the biggest days and nights that Victory Bar has seen this year. And the feedback that I was getting at that was just that it's so nice to know that there is someone here who is thinking about us and who is doing things for us. And now we've got the brilliantly named PGIF, Postgrads It's Fridays. Which again is so simple, but it's actually making a big difference in the feedback that I'm getting. Is that people are just, they're so happy that there is an event at the union that is just for them, and that they can come to meet other postgrads. And that literally the feedback I was getting at the first one, like, it blew me away sometimes. And now I've got a really snazzy little thing. So you've got, basically I've created 5 people here that are all very different. So you've got a range from kind of 21 to 41. You probably can't see that on the video because the writing is very small. In fact, can you see that at the back? You guys all right? Excellent. And they all do different things, they all live in different places, and they're all obviously, as well, it's quite a diverse population. So you've got Anne, who's 21, Mike, who's 23, Jane, who's 31, John, who's 41, Chris, who's 25, and they all do different things and they live in different places. And I want to talk about how, even though these people are all very different, the things that LSU can do can help foster that sense of community between them. So say, for example, Mike, on a whim, decides to do an action project, and he meets Jane, and they get to talking about their postgraduate studies or something. And then Mike happens to also enjoy some sports, so he does some PG sports, because over the summer we do kind of dedicated postgraduate sport program, and that's where he meets Chris, completely different school, but they kind of bond over a love of sports, that sort of thing. Now Chris happens to know John through their involvement with LSU Welfare and Diversity Associations. John is kind of perhaps involved in Disability Support Network, that sort of thing. Chris, LGBT Association member. They meet through their kind of love of welfare, their love of kind of diversity. And then funny enough, whoa, John knows Jane. That was at a social event at LSU that was hosted where John actually met Jane and they got talking about, I don't know, their love of film or their love of, well, whatever. But then, what about Anne over in the corner there? Well, Anne is actually at the London campus, and we'll talk about the London campus in a minute. But Chris went down to the London campus for a conference they did and met Anne, and they got talking about kind of problems that they've had with their experience at Loughborough. And then they both attended a Your Education Week event. So I'm actually going down to London next week for Your Education Week to gather feedback from people and attend their education forum. And that's how they met, and they became firm friends. And then, John knows Anne, what? So that was a collaboration event. So I'm working with London. I want to set up a few collaboration events where I can kind of, instead of smaller scale things, like a big style, like maybe even a weekend, I'll come up to Loughborough, we'll go down to London, that sort of thing. Where, because I think that JT for Media as well is planning something really similar, utilising that London space. I mean, London's a brilliant city, so why not go down there and collaborate with that? And then Anne actually knows Jane because they did a pub quiz that was set up at, kind of postgrad specific, either in the Union, because the Union's got a great quiz, well, or in town as well, because I'm looking to do a lot more stuff in town as well to engage those people that maybe don't like the Union very much already based on what they know and want them to reach out a bit more to them in town. So that's kind of a complicated web of 5 people that initially seem very different and probably wouldn't engage with each other, actually communicating through stuff that the Union can do for them. And now let's talk about accessibility. It's about making sure that postgraduates are aware of the support. So I've already mentioned a lot about postgraduate well-being, mental health, and there have been a few times this year where I've been quite dismayed at the lack of awareness in the postgraduate population about the services that are available to them, including people not knowing about it for kind of like 2 years and having issues for 2 years. And not knowing that there's people there that can help them. And it's about making sure that, so the way that I'm doing that is kind of getting involved. I'm in a student experience working group with student support services, graduate school, that sort of thing. And I'm liaising a lot with student services staff as well to talk about kind of issues that postgraduates face, that because undergraduates might not face these issues. A lot of postgraduates, for example, have children or they have funding from their governments if they're international, and that's something that a lot of undergraduates can't really claim to have as other issues. But it's very different for postgraduates, and the experience can be really different. And I also want to show, in terms of accessibility, how the Union is accessible. The fact that the Union isn't doing much over summer, I think, is a real kind of thorn in its side, given that postgraduates don't have the traditional holidays that we do, that undergraduates do. Sorry, I'm not an undergraduate anymore. So stuff like PGRs, they don't go home over the summer. You've got 1,600 people that don't go home over the summer. You've got PGTs who their dissertations are in for September, not for May. They might stay here. I've stayed here for the last 2 years to do work over the summer, and I'm consistently let down by how little there is going on campus, particularly from the Union. So I want to work really hard to make sure that actually, even with the changeover period of exec, which obviously is in July, you use that as a chance to maybe do events for postgraduates, build up a program of summer events that postgraduates can get involved in, and maybe they might not have wanted to get involved in the main term time because they felt intimidated by the number of undergraduates there. You know, there is sometimes that gulf between them, and I think it's important to make sure that we're doing things separately as well as together, and I think the summer is a really good opportunity to do that, but also be talking to the university about facilities. Stuff like Hazelgrave is sometimes closed for 3 weeks at a time, like some of the computer labs, and that can be a real, well, for lack of a better term, ball ache for people that want to stay here and do work or do things, and that extends to quite a lot of the services available in the Union, in the university, sorry. And I'm also, like I said there, collaborating frequently with LSU team at London, and I'm travelling down to London a lot. Like I'm going down there maybe once a week, at least every 2 weeks. I'm going down there a lot to talk to people, see them, get a better idea of what's going on and make sure that they're tiding on well as well. Relationships, again, just to be a quick one, this is just about establishing the strong foundation. This is obviously the first year of this role. A lot of people at the university still don't know who I am, but that's kind of my fault as well. But it's about making strong relationships and links with the graduate school who oversee all of the PGRs here, with the PG subcommittee, the research committees, associate deans of teaching and deans of research, and the learning and teaching committees as well, and the PG postgrad campaign and marketing departments from the university, to make sure that we can continue working together even after I've gone. Because I want them to know that, yeah, if I'm leaving in September, probably, but given my past history, probably not. But I want them to know what this role is, to bring it into the university, so it's a really important part of the whole strategy. We're proud of how close the uni and the union are, and I want that to continue. And the way that I can kind of quantify that, I guess, to look at how to strengthen those relationships is look at the collaborations that I'm currently working on with the university. I'm chairing a supervisory working group with the university staff, which is about looking at the relationship between staff, supervisor and supervisee, and how we can best improve it, increase best practice across the university, and the PGR representation review, which is about the PGR rep systems that we have in place, making sure they're more making sure they're better, basically. And just engagement, that's an obvious one. Everyone talks about engagement, so I'll just chuck it in there as well. But it's about gathering feedback and acting on it. Like PGIF literally stemmed from someone saying to me, I wish there was something going on Friday afternoon, because that's when a lot of PGRs finish work for the week. And then looking at other successes. So tomorrow I'm going to Birmingham to look at what they're doing over there, and I'm also travelling to Nottingham as well, because I want to see what other people are doing, because some of these people have been in, these roles have existed for like 2 or 3 years in other unions, not with this one, and I want to make sure that I can not steal their successes, but look at what's been good, look at what hasn't been, and make sure that we don't fall into the same pitfalls. Advertising the appropriate events and initiatives, and ensuring that they're not saturated with irrelevant information. This union sends out a lot of info, and for many PGRs particularly, but also PGTs, they just switch off, because you're getting like 5 or 6 emails a week, and a lot of it isn't really applicable. We still even have problems with people mailing lists, including students in London, when they're advertising something happening in this building the next day. It doesn't work. So it's about making sure that the information they're getting is relevant, informative, concise, short. It doesn't take them 20 minutes to read it. And then just consistently acting to ensure that other members of the union team, the exec team, which they are, and it's brilliant this year, even the fact that I'm here as a physical reminder is good, because you're always wondering, how can I do something for postgraduates? And I'm really excited to see that RAG, for example, has put someone on their committee that engages with the postgraduate population, and that Action is really trying hard to engage with it. And I had a meeting with the development officer from societies to talk about postgraduate involvement, so that's going really well. And how do you measure something like that? Well, qualitative, spoken word, what I'm getting back from feedback, and then quantitative, looking at the numbers involved. Over freshers, we doubled the numbers of postgrads engaged with the union and stuff like pick a project night, make your mark night, that sort of thing. And finally, sorry, I have gone over the 5 minutes, but I haven't gone over 22:32. This is now some of the emails that I'm getting. This one is actually from the same person that emailed me originally, and they've said, thank you for the hard work you're putting in, it's appreciated, and I'm starting to feel like a Loughborough student. Like that is literally some of the same people that at the start of the year were saying how upset they were, and now saying how happy they are. And that means a lot to me, and it should mean a lot to the union, because they're a hard group to engage with postgrads, but if you're there for them, they will come. And I'm working really hard to make sure that this union is as incredible for postgraduates as it has been for undergraduates. And it is hard to do this in my first year. I know some sections take a long time to get going. It's about doing these small steps, making the people feel welcome, and following on from there. And I'm going to do that for the rest of my term. I'm on until September, not July like the rest of the team. So I'm here over the summer to make sure that next year's exec are kind of mindful of it, and hopefully whoever replaces me can do that as well. And I'm working to make sure that this job can continue to be a success for the people that it means the most to, and that is the postgrads here at Loughborough University and Loughborough University in London. Thank you. Are there any questions for me? Yes, Joe?
So you talked about engagement throughout the year, and in the times where, like the summer, when it's really easy to get engaged with it. How are you going to engage postgrads in the executive election, and also to sort of potentially run or even vote for your position? Because we know that you struggle to get people to...
So I think from discussions with Matt, basically we both agreed that the current exec election system just does not work for postgrads, particularly PGRs, but even PGTs. 10 days is far too long. The timing of it happens in the year doesn't really work. So we're actually looking at probably splitting the election off from the main exec elections, either doing it slightly before or just closely afterwards, because we do want that team dynamic of you coming on kind of at similar times and working together, because I missed out on a lot of the stuff that was done early on because I didn't come on until September. I wasn't elected till late May. So it's about making sure that I'm advertising that appropriately through the right channels, because last year the advertising wasn't really that good from the union about it, and I think Sound Clash had more posts from the union in that week than the postgrad election did, which isn't good enough, because this is a really important job, it's an important role, and postgrads are a really important part of any university and union's reputation. So Gil and I are working on that to make sure that, one, the election engages them, it's not lost in the fray of what is the initial, like, the freshest excitement with the exec elections, but still making sure that people are engaged with it, coming like maybe, like I say, do it just a little bit afterwards. And also that means that I can get the union as well to put the resources and raising the awareness of it, but also talk to kind of departments and stuff, so that that role is just the focus. Hello, Marina.
Yeah, I've missed the beginning, but you haven't mentioned international student at all, and I know the demographic of postgrad is mainly international.
Yeah.
Especially when I went down to London, they accommodate all their sections and all the activities because the minority actually became the majority in there. So you didn't mention what you're going to do with international students in terms of how you're going to target, like do activities targeted for them, because it's mainly different from a UK student. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's fine. I think that's fair. Yeah. So a lot of what I'm doing kind of more generally is to engage the postgraduate population, but I know that it kind of wasn't mentioned there, so I wanted to keep it brief. But I am looking at ways that, obviously, because it's quite hard for me not coming from an international background myself.
Obviously, yeah.
But for example, with the new committee that I want to set up very, very soon, I will have an international representative there who I hope would work with you. Obviously, I want to work with you, and I obviously work really closely with Ellie and Terry down in London as well. I'm down there a lot, talking to students there, you know, international and non-international. And yeah, I mean, I'm very open and wanting to engage those populations. So whether that means working really closely with you, you know, I boosted kind of international day to the postgrad population, sent out a kind of large bit of emails to that. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Yeah, like I can't mention everything in there, but every postgrad is a part of my plan, be they international or not. Yay.